Alrighty, well, it's 10 after 8 in the morning on a Tuesday morning here at Camp Crazy. It's sunny out today, which is nice. I've been told that it's supposed to be a very nice day, and I'm looking forward to that. It is, what is it? It's November the 5th. November the 5th, yes. Anyway, there's Rocky. Yeah, hi, Rocky. There's his tail. Ow, ow, he's heavy. Sometimes he stands in a way that just make you hurt. Yes, 'cause he weighs about 150 pounds, you know. You do, you're very heavy. I'm just kidding. He weighs about 15 pounds, which is still pretty heavy for a cat. Yeah, eh? You're 15 pounds of love and wonderfulness, though. He is. There's his tail. Look at his tail go. Oh, hey, you. You're a big old cat, you are. You're a tomcat. And that's something because I'm a tom. I am. Anyway, I don't know what you can see right now because I got the screen turned away from me. I'm hoping you can see Rocky getting his chin rubbed and stuff. Yes, and he's purring. You're very purry and furry, you are. Yes, you are. Anyway, yeah, that's the bottom line. That's what we're doing here. We're doing some chin rubs. I'm soon going to have to get up because I'm soon going to have to prepare something to eat, Rocky. Yeah, I don't go back to work until Friday, as far as I know. So I've got the full week ahead. There's an online auction with some things on it that I want to bid on tonight. So we'll see how that goes. One of the things that's on it, and it's not something I'm going to bid on because I can't really be taking on another vehicle. But it's weird though. It's a 76 Buick Century sedan. I remember those cars when they were new. But here's the thing. This auction, they've actually had 2 online auctions from this property so far. They're liquidating a farm property. And this is the third online auction to eliminate more of the things from this property, to sell more of the stuff off from it. And the thing is, though, this Buick has already been sold. Like, they sold the Buick in the first auction they had. And the high bid, I think, was around $1,700, something like that, $1,700 or $1,800 for this car. But now I see it's up again for auction, so that tells me something happened, but I don't know what it is. It's weird, that's all. But see, to me, I think that's a red flag. I would really look into that before I would bid on it if I were going to bid on it. If I was going to bid on the car, I would do that because, you know, those things are sold as is. When you buy the car for an auction like that, it was sold as is. And that was even stipulated. They said it's on the road, it's a running car, and it is being driven on the road now, but that it's sold as is. So the new owner would just buying it as it is, just as it sits. So there's no guarantee or anything. And so it had to be a fairly serious situation for the car to be returned to the basically for the car to be up for sale again like that at the same auction on the same property. The only thing I can think of is that possibly whoever bid on it never came to collect it or something. They bid on it and then they just never showed up to collect it, in which case they may have decided just to put it up again. People who do that, though, I'll tell you, if you want to make an enemy out of an auctioneer, that's a good way to do it, is to bid on something and then not show up to collect it. In fact, that person will probably be banned from buying any more stuff from that auction if they did that. Yeah, because the auctioneer can do that. They can ban you from the auction or any future auctions. They have that ability. Um, I know when I worked for the auctioneer, a different auctioneer than this one that I'm dealing with now, that I'm buying some stuff from. Um, he had that ability. He could eject you from the auction. I was working security prior to an auction, and I don't know what it is, but men in their 60s, I don't know why, but a lot of the issues that we had with people stealing stuff from the auction were with older men in their 60s and 70s, which you wouldn't think. They're not the stereotypical thieves, but those are the ones we had the issues with. And when you go to a live auction and you see the staff members there, you see the men who actually are responsible then for holding the items up during the auction and bringing them back to the successful bidder in the crowd and stuff, and helping you load up after the auction, load your vehicle up with your heavier stuff and whatnot. I was one of those guys. And when you go to a live auction and they have that preview of the items before the auction where you can walk around and look things over, when you see those guys, you may not realize it, but they're actually doing security. They're watching you. And so if you steal something, those guys, they have eyes on you. We were supposed to do it in such a way that people wouldn't really realize we were watching them, but we were. And I observed these two older men. They were in their 60s, and they were 60s or 70s. They were definitely older men. And there was a bunch of stuff on a table. And one of the things that was there was a bunch of cowbells, little cowbell, things, little tiny. Anyway, um, they were just little tiny bells, basically, that you'd hang around an animal's neck. They were like a cowbell, but they were smaller. They might have been for a goat or a sheep or something. I really don't know, but there was a box of them there anyway, like a flat, basically, full of these bells. Well, one of the guys gave the other guy a look, and then the other guy positioned himself in such a way that they thought that I couldn't see what they were doing, which automatically drew my attention. And well, ended up, because they had done that and drawn my attention, I did see what they did. And what the guy did is one of them stood between his friend and me, thinking that I wouldn't see what happened. And the other one had slipped slipped a couple of those bells into his pocket. And I know, and he had wearing a winter coat, like a long cloth winter coat, and he slipped them into his pocket. And the thing is, another thing that I had done is I had counted all the small items on that table. So I knew how many cowbells were there. I knew how many of this were there. I knew how many of that was there. And so when they went away from the table, they gave me a look as they walked past me. I got cat fur in my mouth. Anyway, so I went right over and I counted those bells, and there were two missing. And I had just counted them not too long before I saw those two guys. So I went over to my boss and I kind of motioned toward them. I kind of nodded toward them. And I said, those two guys, I I just watched them steal a couple of bells out of the flat over there on the table. So he went over and he talked to them and he told them to leave. And they were demanding to know why he was putting them out of the auction. And he said, I'm putting you out of the auction because as the auctioneer, I have the right to do that. And I'm asking you to leave. And they kind of made out like they were angry and stuff and outraged at being asked to leave, but they did leave. They put on a big act though, like they hadn't done anything. But I mean, I saw them do it, and actually, the way they went about it, they drew my attention. I actually started really focusing on them because of what they did. And so anyway, the thing is, there's all kinds of things like that go on, but the only thing that makes any sense to me is that whoever bid on the car either picked it up and then found out for some reason that they couldn't get a clear title to it. And if that was the case, that would, if there was liens against it or something, if that was the case, they would be able to return it. And the other possibility is that they just never came to get it, in which case it could be put back up for sale then, if they didn't come to get it. So, and they would just be barred from any future auctions is what would happen with them. But I've really got a cat fur. I've got this stuff stuck on my tongue, this cat fur. Anyway, so I don't know what it is that happened, but I think it has to be one of those two things. Because when you buy something at auction as is, even as is, they have to be able to provide you with a clear title. So if they went to register that car and it turns out there were liens against it, or something like that, if there were mechanics liens against it, or if there was money owing against it, if they'd gotten a loan and used it as collateral, or something like that, which would be hard to imagine that you could use a 76 Buick Century as collateral for a loan these days, but maybe. I don't know. But what I do know is there's something strange anyway. Now, if it's up for sale again, that would mean that whatever liens there are against it have been settled, because they wouldn't place it up for sale again unless that was the case. So I figure it's got to be one of the two things. But really, I don't know. I mean, those are just, having worked for an auctioneer, I can't see any other possibility. I can't see it being anything but one of those two things. But there may be some third or fourth option I'm not aware of. But I do know when I was working for the auctioneer, there's Rocky. Hey, Rocky, Rocky. When I was working for the auctioneer, we sold a house. This is kind of funny, actually, this story. There's a kind of a fly-by-night construction company in this area. I'm not going to say their name, but the last name of these people who own it and the name of the company is their last name. And this family is kind of known to be pretty a fly-by-night bunch anyway. They're just known for that, to be very rough people and very, not the most trustworthy people anyway. But, and they're known to cut corners. The construction company there that they run, they're known to be really like shoddy workmanship and cutting corners and whatnot. But anyway, we sold this house. The house was only partially finished. The outside of the house was done, but inside it was all studs. Like none of the interior walls were up or anything. But all the materials were in the house, like all the plywood and the drywall, that was all in there that you could do it. There was plywood floors, but that was it. There was just studs where the rooms would be. Anyway, we sold the place, and when the buyer tried to register the deal with the township, they didn't know what he was talking about. He's saying, well, there's a house there. I bought that house that's there. And they're saying, no, there's no house there. And he's insisting that there is. And there was. He was right. There was a house there. Turns out they built an entire house, and the building inspector and the township never knew anything about it. And what they had done is, there was a forest. They'd cleared an area of the forest, and they had made a laneway going in. It was a really rough laneway. I mean, it would wreck your car going in and out of there. It was terrible. And so you drove through the forest, basically, down this long laneway, and then that opened up into a clearing where they'd built the house. So anybody going past on the road would just see it. It looked like a tractor lane, like what a farmer would use to get back into his property. You know, if a farmer was taking the tractor back into his property to work or whatever, that's what it looked like. and just trees. So from the road, all you would see is a forest, and you'd see this lane going back that looked like something a farmer would use, to get back there with his tractor. And but here there was a whole house being built back there, and nobody knew. So anyway, these people, they literally, that's how fly by night this company was. They literally built an entire house with no permits or anything. And the building inspector had no idea that there was even a house there until the purchaser came in and tried to register the deal. So of course, we couldn't provide a clear title to that house. So the buyer had a right to back out of the deal, which he did. And then we had to get the building inspector in there to look it over. And luckily, the building inspector understood that it was the fault of the company that built the house. It had nothing to do with us. We didn't know. And they even had forged documents. And they were well done, too. And I mean, so we didn't know, because the house even came with documents, but they were all forged. So when the guy who successfully bought the property went to register the deal, he went in there with forged documents for a house that didn't exist on paper. It existed in the real world, but it didn't exist officially. And so we had to get the building inspector in. And luckily, he was pretty cool. He was mad. He was really angry that an entire house had been built without him knowing anything about it. But he understood that it was the fault of the contractor, and the contractor alone was to blame. And so he wasn't mad at anybody else. And so he went pretty easy on it, really. There were a few small things he said would have to be done to bring it to code. But he didn't. He could have ordered that the entire house be torn down. He had that right, because it shouldn't have been there in the first place. Legally, it shouldn't have been there in the first place. So he had that right. Anyway, that's just one of the weird things that can happen. But the thing is, if when you buy an item at auction, like a titled item, like a piece of property or a car, that's the one thing they have to do, is they have to be able to provide you with a clear title to the property you've bought, either to the vehicle or to the house or the land or whatever. Anything that has a legal ownership or title papers or deed or whatever, they have to be able to provide you with a clear title, with no encumbrances against it or anything. And so an entire house being built without authorization, and then forged documents being provided, all of that means that there's no clear title, because, like I say, that the building inspector in that case has the right to order that the whole place be tore right to the ground. And he could have done that, and luckily he was cool about it, but he could have done that. Not everybody would have been so cool about it. So yeah. Anyway, that's it. I'm not bidding on the car, but there is a few items I want to bid on. I want to bid on a spare stove, in case that stove I'm using outside there, the Coleman stove, in case it fails. My old stove that I was using as a backup it continuously fails too at this point. So there's no guarantee if the stove I'm using fails that my old stove will work for any length of time. So I want to get a third stove, basically, to use as a backup for the other two. And there's a few other items that I'm looking at, things that would help me with my work and so on. Anyway, that's it for now. We'll talk to you later.